Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lindsay Unfiltered. And today we will be wrapping up the rest of our deep dive into Gypsy Rose's book, My Time to Stand. Now, if you haven't seen the first 3 videos, I urge you to go check those out right now. We break down each chapter in detail, and I give significant excerpts from each chapter that I think are significant. Now, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I hope you guys have some great resolutions. One of my goals is to go live on TikTok and YouTube every day of January. I've been a streamer before, so it's not going to be hard for me to stream every day, but I am eager and excited to see where that journey takes us. Now, the last couple of chapters of Gypsy Rose's book attempt to tie everything together neatly and nicely with a big red bow on top. She talks about prison, finishing out her sentence, and her love interests and marriages. I want to dig a little bit deeper into those, so we're going to look at each chapter in detail and significant excerpts and pictures that Gypsy put in the end of the book, and we're going to offer our unfiltered opinion. Without further ado, let's take a look at the last couple of chapters of My Time to Stand. Now, we left off on chapter 19. Gypsy says that she meets Ken in prison, and she describes Ken as a breath of fresh air. It was nothing like the relationship with Nick, she alleges, and this is just a relationship, a breath of fresh air, someone who she felt incredibly comfortable with. She really enjoys the time that she spends writing back and forth with Ken. At first, she wasn't going to respond to Ken because her mother didn't like Ken dolls. Again, throwing another Dee Dee reference in there, always seeming to full circle every point she makes back to her late mother. If we look in chapter 19, she says, "Gypsy, I know you through and through, and I love you for who you are today, for the heart I've come to know." Then Ken motioned his hands over his chest, over his heart, and continued, "I want to spend every day waking up next to you, building a life with you, and being the one that you can come to through all the hard times. I want to be that one for you. Will you marry me?" To which Gypsy says, "Yes." Now, Gypsy alleges that they were happy and this proposal came at a perfect time and there was no issues. It was like love at first letter or something similar to that. She says in the book that Nick allegedly found out she was engaged. And then she says that Nick told her she was committing adultery. As Nick saw it, he was Gypsy's first, therefore they were married, and her getting married to another man was a huge no-no, right? And then Gypsy says Nick's domineering antics are starting to get old. He's still trying to control me even though he's locked up and I'm locked up. Honestly, guys, I have never heard that story. Like, I've never heard that before, but I don't know. I mean, these are her accounts, right? To understand what she means a little better, we looked at chapter 19 where she says, basically Nick said I was committing adultery, that he had taken my virginity when he raped me, and that by God's law we were married. The letter was reminiscent of his dominant role that he was obsessed with playing out when we had our internet relationship. His attempt to control me and humiliate me as his submissive for his own deviant sexual pleasure had gotten old, only because I was in a healthy relationship with Ken. Again, so Gypsy uses trigger words referring to SA and dominance and basically tries to detach herself from Nick and his behavior. I find it hard to believe that she was not engaged in this behavior with Nick. I don't believe it was all Nick, right? There are several sources showing that she was complicit in this. She was consenting to this. So in her book, when she tries to draw that line between her and Nick, when it comes to the dominant, submissive things, I believe she wants to continue to draw the wedge between Nick is that type of person. Nick is the sexual deviant. That's not me. I want to draw that line. I want people to think that I was not complicit in that. I was not consenting to that. That's not who I am. I never was and I never will be that person, right? GYPSY does write with Nick back and forth in prison, she says. And on her last letter to him, she says that she takes accountability, not because she loves him, but because of her due diligence to justice. In chapter 19, she says how we were basically children, adults with mindsets of children going through this ordeal. I told him I realized he didn't have much outside experience, and I understood that. I felt a sense of guilt, which is why I testified on his behalf at his trial. I felt that taking accountability for my role was the right thing to do. I didn't do it out of love, but out of a sense of obligation and due diligence to justice. Due diligence to justice. Again, very rich, buttery, creamy, right? Now, we know that GYPSY Rose, Blanchard, and Ken ended up breaking up inside of the jail. They didn't get married, right? They did not end up getting married. And GYPSY attributes this to Ken being so selfless that he puts everyone else's needs and wants in front of his own. Everyone was telling him, if you love her, let her go. And Ken, at that point in time, according to GYPSY, he put his love for her to the side on behalf of those things. Honestly, if somebody loves you and they propose to you, if they truly love you or are in love with you, in my opinion, nothing, no one, nobody, no thought, no intention, no rumor, no circumstance would stop them from marrying you. So what's the real reason that Ken didn't marry GYPSY? I don't know. I'm not Ken, right? But they're back together. They're not engaged, but they have a baby on the way. And that's basically an engagement for the next 18 years of their lives. So we'll see where their relationship goes. Later on in 19, she talks about how she meets Ryan. And she loves the fact he's from Louisiana. He's a Southern gentleman. And she also feels like with Ryan, they can give each other burdens. She gives a burden, he gives a burden. She felt like she could talk to Ryan and he wouldn't judge her in that way, right? She also says in this book that Rod and Christy told her not to marry Ryan because they knew that she was still in love with Kent. Well, it seems as if the entire family got their wish then, right? Because GYPSY Rose and Ryan are now divorced. All of that was for absolutely nothing. Ryan had to be brought through the ringer and back for absolutely nothing at all. Because Ken couldn't handle it. Allegedly, in my opinion. Why did another man have to step in and take your place just for you to squeeze back into it? Can you explain that? Oh, I don't know. Or maybe I'm getting too deep. I'm sorry, Ken. No offense. But GYPSY Rose says that her dream of a real life, married, kids, dog, that she abandoned and picket fence took over and she decided to marry Mr. Ryan. When referencing Ken in chapter 19, GYPSY says, Hollywood therapists and other media personalities, sometime from those in my own immediate family. I see now, he believed he was acting in my best interest by sacrificing his own needs and wants. Then we go to chapter 20. GYPSY Rose starts it off talking about how she's been on her best behavior while in prison and she would want to do nothing to get in trouble to prolong her sentence. And then one mysterious day, she's taken to the whole segregation, a lonely cell all to herself. But the thing about this circumstance is that Gypsy doesn't know why she's here, allegedly. She's asking, but no one will tell her. She feels like, what is Ryan going to think? What is my mom going to think? They're not going to hear from me. So, come to find out, Gypsy Rose was placed in the hole because she was under investigation. Because allegedly someone said they wanted to break her out. And the powers that be over the jail had reason to believe Gypsy Rose knew this person who said that they wanted to bust her out of there ASAP. Gypsy doesn't go into detail on if she had regular conversations with this person, letters, fan mail, or if she knew them personally. She just says that she knew nothing about it. She doesn't know, but allegedly that's why she was put into the hole. She describes her time in the hole. In the hole, I could only take a 5-minute shower twice a week. And it's a cage shower, so you're standing under the sprinkler naked in front of the female guards. When you go into the cage shower, there's a cubby hole for you to put your hands through, like the ones in Western movies, so guards can uncuff you from the other side. There is a toilet in my cell, so I had to do my business out in the open. The goal is to take away your dignity. Mine was flushed on day 1. I hate to be the one to say this, but what happened to Dee Dee's dignity? Was that flushed? Okay, I think Gypsy Rose likes to tell us about the poor conditions in prison to kind of garner sympathy. They drain my hope, things of that nature. Also, I thought a lot of inmates had their potty in their room. Like, I thought that was standard to have your potty in your room, right? Honestly, I feel like she wants us to feel bad, right? Look what I had to go through. Look what I had to endure, right? Gypsy then talks about how her parole is coming up, and Christy spoke on her behalf to the parole board about how Gypsy had been maturing over the last 8 years and why Gypsy should be released on parole. Here's my thing about Christy being the one to speak. Okay, the last video is going to hit harder. I'm sorry, it is. But Christy wasn't around. Hold on. Christy wasn't around for the first 24 years of your life. I really don't care what people have to say about it. I'm in that mood today. She was not. She allegedly wanted to see you, but the rift between her and your mother was so strong that it didn't happen. So, who is Christy to speak on your character? I mean, yeah, she built a relationship with you for the past 8 years, but did she really, really, really know you prior to and leading up to your crime? Food for thought, right? And then we go on to chapter 21, and this is where she talks about her release date in full. How she's getting released, she has clothes in a dress out box. Ryan's trying to look for her shoes and that white and blue shirt she wore. And everything's going so fast. We all saw it on Lifetime, right? Right? I'm going to read a passage from her release day in the book, and then I'm going to tell you my issue with it, right? According to chapter 21, December 28, 2023 was when she was released. She says, typically when inmates are released, they change into the clothes given to them in their dress out box. Some people file onto a bus that takes them to a bus station. Others are picked up by someone they know. I was the exception to the rule. Since the news of my parole broke, along with the announcements of a docuseries Lifetime was filming, the media's interest in my release was intense. This concerned the authorities at Chillicothe. Nobody wanted a scene. Ryan was going to pick me up, but we didn't know what time I'd be released until the prison called him. Here's my issue with Gypsy Rose getting out of jail. This is why I only watch 1, maybe 2 episodes of that Lifetime series. You talk about Christy and Rod and your family and and how good it's going to be reintegrating into society with your family. Why aren't they there when you're getting out of jail? Why aren't they there? I know some people that said something came up this. No, it's huge. It's big enough. You should have been there. Why is Ryan the only one there? Why didn't you tell him, my family needs to be here? I'm sorry, but when you see people get out of prison, their loved ones are there to pick them up. It's like usually a whole gang of people, a whole fleet, a whole Starliner, a whole limousine, a whole Denali packed full of people. I don't care, a station wagon, skates, boots. They're going to make it there to see their family member. Why was Ryan only there? Was it for show purposes? I'm sorry, but I feel like all of the releases from prison I've seen, it's just like the ones who held you down for the longest are there. But they weren't there. And I feel like if Ryan had something to do with that, that's kind of selfish, right? And then GYPSY talks about the confines of her parole. Something else that kind of annoyed me about the series, she began crying when the jail told her she needed to head straight to Louisiana. She couldn't pass go, collect $200, go to the stadium, meet Taylor Swift. Like, excuse me, you just got released. I understand you want to see it all, but you're still technically in jail until the 10 years are up. You can't just frolic around freely. You know what I mean? So that kind of really hit a nerve with her. She says she's so confined in this parole, just like she was confined with her mother. More dramatic ties to Dee Dee. They're all throughout the book. They're littered throughout the book, right? Dramatic ties to Dee Dee. I guess to reinforce the reader that the only reason why I'm here is because I was confined by my mom. Now I'm confined by the parole system. Woe is me. You're out. People have done life for less. You better be thanking God every day because you got lucky, right? And she explains this in chapter 21 by saying, my mother had taken me out of Louisiana almost 20 years before. The explanations are vague, mere guesses. She had taken me from my father and family and replaced the void in my heart with lies and hurt. So guys, you see, she says that her mother took her away from her culture, took her away from the saints and gumbo. And guys, Louisiana is not the greatest state in the United States, okay? I can just say that right now. And that's personal opinion. She can feel like it's the best state out here, but no. Right? No. Okay? The food is delicious. The sports. There is a good culture, right? But when it comes down to logistics and politics and people, Louisiana is not where it's at, in my opinion. Okay? And I have a dog in that fight. Let's just put it that way, okay? In chapter 21, she says, it was as if Chillicothe had let me out only to boomerang me back. Speaking of parole, freedom was an illusion. My decisions on how to spend my holiday were not mine. A dose of humility and reality knocked me over. I was back to not speaking for myself. Other people were speaking on my behalf, referring to me as she and her. Did I even matter? While my 40-plus guests had side conversations about what Mike was accomplishing on the phone, I was catapulted back to volunteer way. I was confined to a wheelchair. I was back in the closet at Daddy Claude's, in the alleyway with my mother, tied to the bedpost, running away and dragged back. The Airbnb was the shed. It was the scalpel that traced my throat. It was the hole. Who wrote that? That was painfully beautiful. I'm not going to kid you. It was painfully beautiful. But as you guys can see, she definitely, uses parole or uses things that are maybe minor setbacks as a reason to draw back to my mom. These bigger things that happened in her life, right? And that was the book in a nutshell, guys. From beginning to end. I know it took me a while to get through it. I wanted to analyze. I wanted to provide photos. I wanted to be as useful as I could to you guys with this book. In the end of the book, she talks about how her baby's ultrasound was scheduled on the day of her mom's passing. That allows her to not only have that day as a day of mourning, as a day of whatever she attributes to that day, she can also attribute positivity. She can also attribute new life to that day. She says that she believes her mom would have forgiven her. Would she? I don't know. I can't speak for someone who can't speak for themselves. But on one hand, she'd forgive you, but on the other hand, she was the worst thing that ever happened to you. I don't know. Right? GYPSY also says she's not a victim, nor is she a cold-blooded you-know-what. In the end of the book, the very end of the book, she touches on this for us. She says, I feel like people keep trying to put me in a box of either victim or cold-blooded. But I'm not a hero. I'm not the villain either. I don't think that there's any villain in this story. After you learn more of my mother's backstory and read about her childhood and the SA that she endured, you see that she didn't have much of a start in life either. Life isn't black and white. It's not victim or perpetrator. My mom was both. I am both. Balance makes us human. And that's basically how she ends that book off, right? Right. And at the very end, she adds pictures for us to take a glance at. And I think some of these pictures are interesting, or I haven't seen these pictures before. So I'll share them with you guys. We have a picture of GYPSY and Dee Dee and what appears to be Emma. And someone else, this girl here, standing. I'm not going to make any assumptions. I have no idea who this young girl is here. But that's mom and newborn GYPSY. We have a picture of Rod and GYPSY at a baby shower. We have a picture again of Rod and GYPSY at the gumbo games. We have a picture of GYPSY's dad's scratch sheet for his child support payments in 1995 through 96. That is actually impressive because that thing is as old as I am. And that thing shows, hey, I'm trying to keep up with something here. I'm trying to make sure my child has food in her mouth. I give it to Rod. I give it to Rod for actually making an effort. You know how many men would not do this? You know how many men have babies and they don't even think about how the kid's going to eat? So she includes that, which is really interesting, really old, antique piece of paper there. And the most interesting to me, guys, would be the photo that she drew when she was in her victim impact class in prison. She had to draw a visual representation of her crime. So she draws here a picture frame, broken glass shards. She says those people you see on those broken glass shards are people that failed her. The hammer has Nicholas's name on it. She says he was the tool. It was her hand and he was a tool for her, right? She utilized him to break apart, as you can see the picture's broken apart, to break apart this seemingly happy home that wasn't so happy after all, is what she says. I feel like this photo is really striking. I feel like the photo can take you down a lot of different paths. I really do like the photo. I like the photo because there's a lot of different elements to it. There's the glass, there's the hammer with his name, you know, and the picture showing them seemingly embraced, seemingly as a happy family, and all of that being shattered to pieces by Nicholas, but Nicholas is being held by GYPSY. It's deep. It's deep to me. And that seems to be pretty damn deep to me, guys. I continue by saying, guys, this book was a roller coaster ride. There were ups, downs. There were a lot of downs, right? Bizarre. I definitely feel like it could have gone deeper. Most of the stories we've heard, some of the stories we haven't heard, but I feel like we could have still scratched the surface a little bit more, gotten into the truth a little bit more, right? And not so much reverting back onto Dee Dee. We already know what your motive was. Put that to the side and delve deep into what happened. How did this go from here to here? And I don't feel like we fully got that, right? If you guys enjoyed this series, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Tell me what kind of videos you want to see on the channel down in the comments below. Happy, happy, happy New Year. I hope each one of you have a brilliant, resilient, and wonderful New Year. And I hope you guys will be joining me for the subathon. We'll be live every day on TikTok and YouTube. We are going to have a good time. TikTok, we're going to have a good time. Dance, laugh, joke. But here on YouTube, we're going to talk more about the news, the current events, the scandals of the world. Here's to a year of growth, prosperity, love, and infinite dreams. This has been Lindsay Unfiltered, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and year. Bye now.